Dr. Stephen Lowe and Ryan Listerman here with Adam Revival. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. I think we're going to, take off in this direction for a little bit. In addition to our testimonial videos and other more in-depth videos, we're going to start reviewing some trending stuff online. And today we're going to be looking at the red pill community. We have gentlemen like Andrew Tate, some other no-namers, and we're going to be watching some videos about them commentating on marriage. Ryan, you know a little bit more about the red pill community than me. Why don't you enlighten us a little bit?
So the red pill community, or it's commonly called MGTOW, it's men going
MGTOW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Men going their own way is
okay.
what it stands for. And the whole concept is that marriage has become very unfair for men, that it's often that men get screwed over in the divorce court, or they get a raw deal where family courts tend to take their rights for their children and stuff like that. And the whole it's been a growing concept of that, men should avoid marriage, whether they sleep with a bunch of women or just, maybe not engage too much in dating in general. But usually they're kind of they view themselves as kind of like the alpha males that can get any woman they want, so they don't need to settle down or get married.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I have my topical thoughts on that, but I'm sure they'll come out during these videos. Why don't we get to the first one? What's the first video we got?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get right into it here. We got this one's a recent interview that Andrew Tate did, where he talks specifically about Christianity and Islam's differences on marriage.
Oh, Mr. Tate, here we go. I'm looking forward to this one.
Medicine. They have longer pensions, longer retirements. They need to be paid for.
Talking about
supposed to have a huge tax base of young people working. Have anyone having enough children to sustain the tax base. So what the people in charge of the world are doing is saying, okay, well, then we need to import third worlders to sustain this entire pyramid scheme we have, this Ponzi scheme of you working your ass off so you can retire later. We need to import third worlders who are going to work for pennies and they'll pay taxes so we can sustain it. But that's why all the cultures are collapsing. So you look at this, very interesting. A Christian country is now being invaded by Muslims and third worlders, and you're losing your Christian identity because you don't have enough children to sustain the population.
Yeah.
Because you're only allowed one woman.
Got it.
So
okay, this is pause it there. Pause it there, Ryan.
Muslim man can have 4.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he makes a bunch of valid points there. I will give him that. Things that I do agree with him on, and that, importing a bunch of third worlders and breaking up the Christian nationality of a nation. Yeah, that's occurring right now. But what he's kind of implying that that's by chance, or that's not the intent of the globalist attack on Christianity and Western civilization.
Well, he's applying that's a cause of Christian values, because he'll go on to talk a little bit more about that, in Islam.
Well, he's suggesting that Christianity is weak, essentially, and we've accepted everyone and this and that, right?
Yes and no, but
okay.
Wives and 16 kids,
and just pump them out,
and they can survive and protect their identity and their culture and their religion. So it's actually very interesting. And before I let you answer, only one country solved this: Hungary. Hungary is a Christian nation, and Viktor Orban is one of the smartest world leaders on the planet.
I agree.
He abolished income tax for any family that has more than 4 children. And he's fixed the population crisis, and the population is increasing because people are getting married and having kids. Hungary's fixed it. No other nation has fixed it, because you can't even afford to have 4 or 5 children, because they're decimating you and destroying the currency, and they're just doing all this matrix propaganda on purpose anyway. So besides Hungary, every other Western nation is now importing the Islamic world to sustain itself, because Christian nations can't reproduce. So it's interesting what you said. I agree with what you said, but it's also the death throes of Christianity. Christianity is about to be decimated because of that. Because what do you have without people?
You want my answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So his kind of whole plot, theory there is that because Christianity is monogamous, one man can't have a bunch of different wives and have a bunch of different children. You know,
Mhm.
earlier in the video, he talked about how he wants 25 kids, which, can't do that with just one woman over a period of, of a marriage. So where I think he's completely misses the point, or is that talks about Christianity in the Western nations over the last 100 or so years, but the last 2,000 years, Christianity has flourished in all these countries, including plague-ridden Europe. We lost what,
Right.
1/3 of the population of the world in Europe during the plagues,
Yeah.
and Christian nations were able to repopulate. So this actually is a this this problem that he properly diagnoses is a new problem that's not because of the problem of Christianity and monogamy, but because actually we've not really been monogamous as a Christian nation for a period of time and been having children and getting married.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'll add to that the attack on the home unit, the home office, and the nuclear family, as they've labeled it. It's just called normal, but it has been discouraged through all of Western civilization to have one man, one woman, and children, right? I would argue a counterpoint that you don't need multiple wives to pop out 25 kids. No, you need one wife that you invest in each other with a relationship under Christ. You follow the God umbrella, and then you raise your children with those values and morals instilled, and they will populate accordingly. And that's a much more substantial population rather than just, bouncing out a bunch of children with random women like a rabbit, and those children do not have a fatherly leadership on this earth, or a personal relationship with God.
Sort of a
So
quality over quantity type thing.
correct,
You're
because if those values aren't instilled and aren't practiced, not forced, but practiced and believed by the child themselves, they're not going to stand for anything in the end. They're just, the brainwash sets in, and this and that, and when does that lineage die out of religion? Because it could go on and on and on, or it could just be substantial and have true faith and true faith growth. That's why Christianity is the biggest religion in the world. The Muslims can keep rabbit breeding and forcing Islam upon their lineage. The Christians are slow and steady, though, because it's true and it's valid. Their relationships with God are very personal to them. It's not going anywhere. He says the death throes of Christianity. He's wrong. He is absolutely wrong. I would argue counter to that Christianity is in full revival right now, as the world has never seen it before.
Yeah, we tend to, as Americans, just focus on America, understandably, and that's where we kind of have maybe this view of Christianity on the decline or dying off. It's pretty much more unique to just Europe and America, whereas in Asia there's an explosion of population of Christianity. There's in Africa, it's almost it's starting to become where the African priests have to come to America to do missionary work because American churches are empty. But American population makes up such a small percentage of the world that
it really does.
Where it's theorized that the Catholic Church could be the downfall of communist China because there's been an explosion of Catholic belief in that country. I think now it's maybe 11 or 12%.
Wouldn't that be beautiful? Yeah, wouldn't that be beautiful? So, okay, well, let's get back in the video.
That was enough on that one particular.
Okay.
We're going to go into one that's a little bit. So what's interesting with Andrew Tate is he would probably have been part of this manosphere a few years ago where it was anti-marriage, where now he's kind of transitioned to more like, Islamic polygamy, where it's like, well, he's not really anti-marriage anymore. He's anti-Christian marriage of one man, one woman, but still kind of believes in the institution of marriage.
He's pro-sin is what it is. He's pro-sin and pro-lust. And I've heard his arguments, to expound. That's probably the same video talking about, how the benefits of having multiple women will keep you from pornography. And it's like, well, just be a man and follow the tenets of morality that Christ give you, and you won't have to worry about pornography. That's the answer. The answer
what he's basically saying is the problem of having multiple women can be solved by having multiple women. It's like,
Right, exactly. But I like Andrew Tate. As far as what he's done for maybe
yeah,
some of the lost boys out there that don't know, have never had a masculine role model. I think he's been good in that regard. But the rest of him, I'm not going to go into it. But obviously, it conflicts with morality, Christianity. I don't think he's a dumb man. I think he's a smart man, but I
oh
think
yeah,
he's putting it.
yeah,
I think he's using, putting his intelligence to dumb use, and it could be put to much better use if he was talking about the truth of Christ and God's word. So I'll leave it at that. But
yeah.
let's get into the next one.
So this next group would be guys that are more kind of just anti-marriage in general.
Just
They're
douchebags,
not,
yeah.
yeah, it's not really they haven't really enlightened themselves maybe with the way Tate has towards some form of marriage, but
Okay.
Let me hop on the soapbox here for a bit because I've put a lot of thought in this. I have an entire chapter in my book on why smart men don't marry today. To answer the question, should we save it? Save it for what? For who?
Is it worth saving?
Yeah, well, not for men. Absolutely not. I mean, it's all risk with very low reward for men, and it's low risk and higher reward for women.
Why aren't you financially free? Why spend all of your time at your job and miss out on all
the social contract of marriage, like the origins of marriage for a very long time? If you read Stephanie Kuntz's book, The History of Marriage, it was about the acquisition of in-laws. And even if there was a breakup in that relationship a few hundred years ago, and she brought a few acres of land to the table and, I don't know, a couple of cows or something like that, he would usually keep the kids and all the assets that were acquired during the merging of the families, and she would often go and live with her family, or in some cases have to go and work in a brothel. But that's changed completely. That entire scenario has been flipped upside down and then smashed into the ground with a big sledgehammer. It's been beaten dead. There's really very few advantages to marriage, for men today. And then you mix into that equation. So if you take a blender and you take that ingredient, you throw that into the blender, and then you take, well, most men today are weaker betas. They don't know how to hold frame in a relationship. They're not red pill aware. Almost all guys will go through the process of betatization through 1,000 concessions. Let's throw in that ingredient. If she decides to pull the plug from underneath you in a marriage and wants to get a divorce, the state will make sure that she's well looked after and there's a transfer of your resources. You probably won't see your kids as much as you used to. Some other guy that she starts porking will see your kids a lot more than you do. Throw that in the blender. And then you turn on the blender and you blend it up and you have yourself a nice big shit shake. There's really nothing in there to try to save.
This guy's an idiot. So that's this guy is just, he sits here and he talks about being an alpha male and then whines like a little baby child about how men don't get enough out of marriage. Listen, man, marriage isn't about man. It's not about men. It's about producing life. It's about producing a functioning home. And yes, you are in charge of that as the man. And if you can't do that, then piss or get off the pot. Period. This is weakness. This is what I hear out of this guy. He wrote a book on this. This guy. I don't like him.
So what I hear with all this stuff, I hear a completely missing the mark on what marriage is, because usually I always hear these guys come from an avenue of talking about property and business and money. All these are only a possible benefit of marriage. At the core root of marriage, it's about two flesh becoming one, two people becoming one flesh. It's about God. It's not about
God. Yeah.
It's not about, whereas Tate's biggest focus is family. These guys, their biggest focus is money. those are all byproducts of serving God at the end of the day. So, is marriage for everyone? No. There's men and women that aren't called to a life of marriage. The church has a solution to this. It's called priesthood and, being a nun, or, with Protestant churches, there's, you don't have to be married, but you should
Deacons,
fill,
stewards. Yeah,
you
it's not a
fill your life with,
requirement.
exactly. You should fill your life with a service of God. That's what you should be
Yeah.
doing if you're not married.
Agreed. Well, yeah. In both regards, married or unmarried, you should be serving God. Now, let's just break this down a little bit further, okay? This guy. I'm sorry, dude. That video. That is the weakest man talking about the weakest things. And he wrote a book. It just angers me a little bit because that's not alpha. There's nothing alpha male about what that guy just said. It's counter to. He is a beta. The dude is a beta that was just talking. What's his name?
Rich Cooper.
Rich Cooper, you're a beta. That's what you are. You're a beta male. You're not an alpha male. Stop spewing lies. Get your head back with God and be a man. That's it. Let's go back to the Garden of Eden real quick.
Yeah.
God created man. He created all of the beasts. Well, he created all the beasts and all of the earth and all these things, and then he created man. And then when he scanned the landscape, he said, "This is good." The one thing that he said wasn't good is that he scanned the earth and didn't find a suitable helper for man. So he put man to sleep, and then he created woman out of man, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so right there we see the purpose of man and we see the purpose of woman. The man is not good alone. Okay,
Yeah.
Man needed a helper. Man needed a woman that was suitable to help him through this life. Man also could not be fruitful and multiply by himself. He needed a woman. This is the purpose of man and woman, and this is why they leave their parents and become one flesh. And you look to Ephesians 5:22 through 30, and you see what the God design of marriage, the sanctity of marriage, that a woman is to submit to her husband, that a man is to love his wife as he loves Christ. I mean, there's this whole component of love and oneness between man and woman in marriage. It is, it is sanctimony, and the fruit of that are children that stand and worship God. That's the God design, man. And guys like this are spewing anti-God design, and it angers me. I don't like that. Yeah. He's part of the problem. He could sit here and talk about beta males and wokeness and weakness and part of the red pill. What do you say? Red pill affirmed or some stupid stuff.
Yeah.
That dude's a douche. He's a douchebag.
Well, it all kind of comes from the same puddle, which is this, breakdown of this, our cultural, basically leaving of marriage, of throwing away the institution of marriage, where it's right. Not that the institution's failing, it's we as a culture's basically breaking it. We're throwing it away, we're casting it aside. You can even see it like as simply as like people that do get married nowadays. Most of their weddings tend to be kind of almost a party or celebration right. of the couple, of like, oh, look at Joe and Jill have been together for 4 years. They're finally putting their names together. Let's have a party for them. Let's celebrate. Let's dance. Right. It's about them. It's about the bride. It's about the bride. It's right. the bride's day. It's about God. It's about pointing towards God. It's about bringing two families together and honoring God. That's where we've kind of, it's something where it's like I almost sometimes cringe at the fact when people that I know that are either somewhat godly or wanting to live a godly life will get married in places other than the church. Like that's where the marriage should. It's almost like the marriage isn't. It should be in front of God, in His temple, in front of your family, because it sets the groundwork for what this is supposed to be for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's not an easy institution to be a part of. So if you're already going into it without God as the center, you're lucky if you make it. You're absolutely lucky. That's why divorce rates are going crazy, is because God's not the center of it anymore.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. And, I do weddings, I conduct weddings, and the main stipulation if I'm going to perform a ceremony for people is that it is done in a Christian manner, and it is done under God and by God and for God. It is we have broken the sanctity of marriage, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we're not going to go down today, but there's reasons for it. The attack on gender, the attack on sexuality, the attack on all of these things are all components that have disrupted the fundamental sanctity of what marriage is. So, and then you come out with guys like this who think it's cool to write a book. This guy's a little boy who pretends to be a man who wants to get things his way, and he's justifying it without God and outside of God. He's a douchebag, and that's I don't even feel bad about saying that. I don't like that stuff. It's nonsense.
Yeah, and it's definitely, and it's actually kind of these guys would probably consider themselves Republican or conservative. So it's actually a movement. It's a movement that's kind of running rampant in what would be called our ranks as conservative voters. But
I see it as a leech, like that's a leech movement, right? You're getting the guys who aren't man enough to be men of God, and you're arousing them to these stupid ideas that are pulling them away from God. It's infiltration, and I don't like it. I don't like it. So we need to do more segments on this, and start highlighting the importance of actual men, actual marriage, and the sanctity of those relationships. I fully denounce guys like, what did you say his name was? Rich Cooper. Yeah, Rich Cooper, man. Come on, buddy. Do better. Be better. Like, I hope your book doesn't warp too many minds, to be honest with you. Be a man, find God, live for something other than yourself, because you sound like a pretty selfish dude.
And it's kind of the view on marriage from a cultural standpoint in our society today. It's a very selfish view of what do I get out of it, whether it's the woman or the man looking at it. And you both are secondary. Like all the talks, the marriage counselors would say, like, well, what do we got to do to find each other's happiness? But at the end of the day, you're sacrificing and pointing towards God.
Yeah, what are you doing for God?
There's going to be times where it's not fun, it's not happy, you might be miserable at times, but it is an institution worth saving. It's an institution worth being a part of, and it's really, it's
the core of the world. It's the home office is the core of the world, right? God knew all of these nations, all of these things would be instilled, but it all begins in the home office. It all began in Eden. It all began with one man and one woman. And then you follow the God umbrella, which he gives us in the Bible, which is God, Christ, man, woman, child. We have to get back to those pillars of normalcy. And if we don't, then we are lost. And that's just the way it is. If we don't get back to those, then we are lost. So, man, it was fun reviewing these videos. I say we get a couple more for to publish soon and to comment on soon. But I had a good time doing this, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll keep doing the segment for sure.
Absolutely. So, but for now, we'll sign off.